I laughed before I could stop myself. The sound was hollow, almost mocking, bouncing off the walls of my small living room. "You've got to be kidding me," I whispered to the phone, though the words felt absurd even as they left my lips. There was no pause on the other end, no apology, no hesitation, just the cold, clinical certainty of someone who had already decided my family's beach house was no longer ours. "We're leaving tomorrow," the agent said. "Your beach house is sold." The words landed like a punch I didn't see coming. My mind stuttered between disbelief and indignation. How could they? How could anyone sell the place my parents had spent decades building, the same house where summers had been measured in laughter, sandcastles, and the scent of salt on our skin? I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles whitened, the kind of tension that makes your bones ache even though your body refuses to move. At first, I laughed again. A nervous laugh, a defense mechanism I didn't recognize until it left my throat. Laughter had always been my shield, my armor against emotional chaos. But this was no joke. This was reality, bitter, shocking, infuriating reality. And behind that laughter, a storm brewed. Anger, betrayal, and an inexplicable fear that someone close to me had orchestrated this. Someone I trusted, someone who had seen the value in every memory we had kept locked in that house, and decided it was theirs to take. The irony was sharp. I had spent mornings sipping coffee on that porch, feeling invincible in my own little world, believing that the house, like the tide, was a constant I could rely on. And yet, in one phone call, that security vanished, leaving only a raw, gaping uncertainty. The contrast between the safety I'd assumed and the sudden upheaval was dizzying. I wanted to scream, to demand explanations, to break something, yet my mind was paralyzed, spinning in circles of what-ifs and should-haves. I hung up the phone, but the echo of the announcement lingered. My house, my sanctuary, gone. And with it, the certainty that the people around me, my family, my friends, those I believed I could trust, were who they had always seemed to be. Or were they? A seed of doubt took root, invasive and relentless. I replayed every conversation, every casual remark, every passing suggestion that had seemed insignificant before. Could someone have been planning this behind my back? How long had they been waiting for the right moment to strike? In the kitchen, I poured a glass of water, hands trembling slightly. The cool liquid did little to calm the heat rising in my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to act, to confront, to dig. But I knew better than to let raw emotion dictate my moves. My father had always said, "Anger is fire. It burns everything, including the person holding it." And I remembered how, as a child, I had watched him navigate storms of deception with quiet patience, uncovering truths layer by layer. I realized then that this wasn't just about a house. This was about control, power, and the subtle betrayals that often hide in plain sight. I walked to the living room window and stared at the horizon, where the first hints of dusk were melting into night. The waves crashed rhythmically, indifferent to human turmoil. It was in that moment, watching the sea swallow the sun, that the absurdity of laughing at my own misfortune fully hit me. My laughter, initially a shield, had transformed into acknowledgement of the sheer audacity of life to challenge what we hold most dear. And yet, within that acknowledgement, a spark ignited. I would not be a passive observer. I would dig. I would uncover the hidden truths. The next hours passed in a haze of phone calls, emails, and frantic notes. Friends and acquaintances, whom I had once assumed loyal, offered condolences but no insight. There were no answers, only polite sympathies that felt like salt in a wound. And then, almost imperceptibly, patterns began to emerge. A slip of the tongue here, an unusual insistence there, a seemingly casual comment from someone I had long trusted that now carried the weight of suspicion. The contrast was maddening. The people I had thought were unwavering pillars now revealed cracks through which betrayal had seeped. By nightfall, the edges of my reality were blurred. I sat on the edge of the sofa, staring at the ceiling, piecing together a narrative that made no sense yet seemed inevitable. Every memory tied to that house, the summers spent building sandcastles, the late nights listening to the ocean, the laughter echoing through empty hallways, was now tinged with the possibility that someone had exploited my trust, manipulated my naivety, and acted without conscience. The dichotomy between love and loyalty versus greed and self-interest had never been so stark. Sleep eluded me. Instead, I pored over old letters, digital records, and forgotten notes tucked away in drawers. Every sentence, every signature, Every casual remark from years past now seemed loaded with intent. I traced the chain of events backward, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when innocence had given way to strategy, when trust had been weaponized. And amid the frustration, fear, and anger, a strange clarity began to form. If I wanted answers, if I wanted justice, or at the very least, understanding, I would have to face the uncomfortable truth that nothing was as simple as it seemed. Morning arrived with a muted gray sky, as if the world itself were aware of my internal turmoil. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, feeling the contrast between the calm outside and the storm inside. I realized that laughter, once my shield, had evolved into recognition of the absurd and cruel twists of fate. I understood now that to navigate this upheaval, I needed more than emotion. I needed strategy, observation, patience. I would need to watch, listen, and wait for the moment when the hidden truths revealed themselves fully. And they did. Over the next few days, subtle clues began to accumulate, an unusual eagerness from a relative to discuss estate matters, a message from a long-ignored contact hinting at insider knowledge, the sudden disappearance of documents that had always been accessible. Each fragment was a whisper of the story behind the sale, a hint at motives and alliances I had never anticipated. The contrast between what had appeared to be harmless and what was now clearly calculated was jarring. Betrayal, it seemed, thrived in plain sight. Yet, amid the rising suspicion and emotional turmoil, I found moments of reflection. Memories of my parents' laughter, their quiet wisdom, and the sense of sanctuary the beach house had provided reminded me of what was at stake. This wasn't just about a building. It was about the principles they had instilled in me, the values that defined trust, loyalty, and resilience. And I realized that while others might act with greed or deceit, I had the opportunity to act with integrity, to seek the truth with clarity, and to confront the unfolding narrative with courage rather than blind rage. By the time evening fell again, the plan had taken shape in my mind. I would follow the trail of evidence, interpret the signals, and confront those responsible, not with impulsive anger, but with precise questions and unyielding determination. The emotional contrast within me, laughter versus fear, anger versus strategy, betrayal versus loyalty, had become a driving force. Each moment of reflection sharpened my resolve, and every detail I uncovered made the upcoming confrontation inevitable, almost necessary. I slept fitfully that night, haunted by fragments of conversations, letters, and fleeting expressions that now seemed to carry double meanings. But amid the unrest, there was a strange exhilaration. I understood now that the upheaval of my world, the loss of perceived security, was forcing me to grow, to perceive the subtle dynamics of human intention, and to embrace the power of observation over assumption. When morning came, I stood again on the porch, letting the wind carry the scent of salt and sand. The house, though technically sold, remained etched in my memory, an emblem of what had been and what I had to uncover. I laughed once more, not the hollow laughter of disbelief, but a quiet, determined laugh. It was the sound of someone preparing to confront hidden truths, someone refusing to let betrayal go unchallenged, someone poised on the edge of revelation. By now, I knew the path ahead would be complex and fraught with unexpected twists. Clues hinted at motives I could not yet fully understand. Alliances I had taken for granted now seemed suspect, and the emotional stakes had never been higher. But in that moment, the contrast between helplessness and resolve, chaos and strategy, despair and hope, crystallized into clarity. I would uncover the hidden truths behind the sale of our beach house, and in doing so, I would discover something deeper about trust, loyalty, and my own resilience. This was only the beginning. The pieces were scattered, the players still masked, and the story far from complete. But the first step had been taken, and for the first time since that fateful phone call, I felt the exhilarating tension of purpose. The drive to confront betrayal, uncover secrets, and reclaim not just the house, but the integrity of everything it represented. The laughter lingered on my lips, tempered by resolve, a bridge to the next chapter where confrontation, revelation, and redemption awaited the first time I faced her. I realized how much fear and hesitation had controlled me until now. Standing outside the small cafe where she had agreed to meet, I felt a knot in my stomach, an instinctive warning that this confrontation, while necessary, was a gamble. Each step toward the entrance felt weighted, the contrast between the calm morning air and the storm in my chest almost unbearable. She smiled when I arrived, that familiar polite mask that had hidden more than I cared to admit. I returned the smile, though it was stiff, rehearsed, a shield against the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "I didn't expect you so soon," she said, sipping her coffee with an ease I envied. Her tone suggested innocence, even concern, but I had learned that appearances were deceptive. I sat opposite her, my hands gripping the table, as the noise of clinking cups and murmured conversations surrounded us. It was ordinary life continuing as if my world hadn't been upended, a cruel reminder of the disparity between my inner turmoil and the calm outside. "I need answers," I said, voice firm but controlled. "About the house, about the sale." I watched her reaction closely, noting the flicker in her eyes, the subtle tension in her jaw. This was no ordinary conversation. Every word, every pause, every glance mattered. The contrast between her poised exterior and the undercurrents of anxiety I suspected made my chest tighten. I had thought I was prepared, but the reality of facing her directly was more intense than any speculation I had allowed myself. She leaned back, folding her hands in front of her, a gesture I recognized from years of careful negotiation, calculated, defensive, yet trying to project control. "It's complicated," she began. "You have to understand there were reasons, financial pressures, legal requirements. You weren't involved in the process for a reason." Her words were calm, almost reasonable, yet each syllable carried an undercurrent of justification I couldn't accept. I resisted the impulse to interrupt, knowing that emotional outbursts would give her the upper hand. Patience, observation, and strategic pressure were my tools now. Over the next hour, the conversation unfolded like a chess game. I asked questions, small and direct at first, then gradually more pointed, testing her claims against the clues I had gathered. Her responses revealed cracks in the story, inconsistencies, moments of hesitation, and inadvertent admissions that hinted at motives I hadn't anticipated. The contrast between her controlled demeanor and the truth slipping through her words made my pulse race. Every revelation was a victory, a piece of the puzzle that brought clarity to the chaos of the previous days. It wasn't just her I had to confront. Over the following weeks, I traced the web of complicity, contacting distant relatives, business associates, and legal contacts. Each conversation revealed layers of deception, from casual lies to deliberate omissions. The contrast was stark. Some acted out of greed, manipulating circumstances for personal gain, while others, unexpectedly, showed loyalty, helping me uncover truths they had long kept hidden. I felt a mix of gratitude and disbelief, realizing that even amid betrayal, integrity could still thrive. The emotional stakes escalated when I discovered the most surprising betrayal. A person I had trusted implicitly had not only known about the sale in advance but had actively facilitated it. Confronting them was like walking into a storm. I rehearsed my words, measured my tone, and prepared for excuses, denials, and deflection. When the moment came, the conversation was tense, each sentence weighted with accusation and defense. The contrast between their calm insistence on innocence and the mounting evidence I presented created a charged atmosphere, thick with suspense. "You knew," I said, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. "All this time you knew it was happening and you did nothing." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched the subtle shifts in posture, the micro-expressions that betrayed guilt, fear, and, eventually, reluctant acknowledgement. It was a revelation both shattering and necessary, a confrontation that stripped away pretense, exposing the raw human motives beneath. The contrast between my former perception of them and the reality of their actions was jarring. Yet it crystallized the path forward. As each confrontation unfolded, I discovered a newfound strength within myself. Weakness, indecision, and self-doubt that had lingered since the phone call began to dissolve, replaced by clarity, resolve, and an ability to navigate complexity without losing composure. I realized that emotional survival was as much about self-discipline as it was about uncovering the truth. The contrast between the person I had been, vulnerable, reactive, anxious, and the person I was becoming, strategic, resilient, unyielding, was profound and empowering. Amid the tension, there were moments of unexpected revelation that tempered the anger and suspicion. Some of those I had assumed complicit were actually acting under pressure, balancing loyalty and personal risk. They revealed the nuances of their decisions, the moral compromises made under duress, and the difficult choices forced upon them. These insights complicated my emotional landscape, blending empathy with the drive for justice. The contrast between greed-driven betrayal and principled, albeit reluctant, loyalty deepened my understanding of human complexity. The climax of these confrontations came during a formal negotiation over the legal and financial aspects of the sale. The room was charged with tension, each participant aware of the stakes. I entered with evidence meticulously organized, questions prepared, and a resolve honed through weeks of investigation. The contrast between my calm, methodical approach and the defensive, sometimes frantic responses of others heightened the suspense. Every word, every gesture, carried weight, and the balance between exposing greed and maintaining integrity became the central tension of the encounter. Through patient questioning, strategic presentation of facts, and careful observation of reactions, the truth unfolded. Motivations were laid bare. Financial desperation, ambition, misunderstandings, and occasional malice all intertwined to create the events that had seemed so inexplicable at first. As each layer was peeled away, clarity replaced confusion, and the emotional stakes, anger, grief, fear, transformed into comprehension and resolution. The contrast between chaos and order, deception and truth, betrayal and understanding became the core of my emerging narrative. By the time the negotiations concluded, the path to resolution was clear. While not everyone's actions could be excused, accountability was established, agreements made, and the framework for restitution set in place. I felt the tension begin to ease, replaced by a sense of moral clarity and emotional balance. The laughter that had once been defensive now shifted subtly toward relief, tinged with the satisfaction of justice tempered by understanding. I recognized that resolution did not always mean vindication or punishment. It meant acknowledgement, awareness, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. Reflection followed the resolution, quiet moments where I absorbed the lessons of the ordeal. I thought about the people who had betrayed, those who had remained loyal, and the role I had played in navigating the chaos. Contrast framed every memory, weakness and strength, fear and courage, greed and integrity. I understood that life's challenges often reveal hidden facets of human nature, and that emotional resilience is forged through confrontation, not avoidance. My perspective on trust, loyalty, and personal responsibility had evolved profoundly. As the sun set over the horizon, I revisited the beach house, now officially transferred but still vivid in memory. Walking through the empty rooms, I felt a mixture of melancholy and empowerment. Every laugh, every argument, every shared secret lingered in the walls, reminding me of the life once lived there and the truths uncovered through hardship. The contrast between loss and understanding, grief and insight, vulnerability and strength, was stark, yet it carried a sense of completion. In that quiet moment, I laughed again, this time genuinely. It was not a laugh born of shock or defense, but one of acceptance, growth, and perspective. I had navigated the treacherous terrain of betrayal and deceit, uncovered hidden motives, confronted fear, and discovered resilience I had not known existed. The emotional stakes had been fully realized, the suspense and moral tension resolved, and a sense of catharsis washed over me. The journey of confrontation, revelation, and redemption had transformed me. I understood now that true strength emerges not from avoiding conflict, but from facing it with clarity, courage, and integrity. Trust, once broken, could be rebuilt in understanding. Betrayal, once revealed, could teach empathy and foresight. The house, though no longer ours, symbolized far more than property. It was a testament to lessons learned, resilience forged, and the enduring power of moral clarity. Walking away from the beach that evening, the waves crashing rhythmically against the shore, I felt a lightness I had not known since the first shock of the sale. Laughter lingered on my lips, tempered by experience and insight. I had reclaimed control of my emotional world, accepted the outcomes, and embraced the growth that had emerged from turmoil. In confronting the hidden truths, I had discovered not only justice and reconciliation, but also a deeper understanding of human nature and the enduring capacity for resilience, compassion, and integrity. The story was complete, yet alive. a reminder that life's most intense trials carry within them the opportunity for revelation, redemption, and personal transformation. And as I walked into the dusk, the wind carrying the scent of salt and possibility, I knew that laughter, strength, and clarity would accompany me forward, a testament to what it means to face betrayal and emerge whole, wiser, and ready to embrace life's unfolding truths.